الحمد لله الذي قصرت عن رؤيته أبصار الناظرين وعجزت عن نعته أوهام الواصفين. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين وبالقاسم محمد أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد فقد قال أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب من وصية له للحسن والحسين لما ضربه ابن ملجم لعنه الله: والله في القرآن لا يسبقكم بالعمل به غيركم. صلى الله عليه وسلم. This is the third majlis in the series under the discussion from this wasiyat from Amir al-Mu'mineen. After he was struck by the sword of Ibn Muljam la'natullah alayh, he said, Wallah bil Quran. By God, take care of this Quran. And then he says, why should you take care of this Quran? La yasbiqukum bil amal bihi ghayrukum. Lest someone else excels or take over or goes beyond as far as the actions are concerned aside from you. This is your book, you have inherited it, not someone else should go ahead and exceed you or excel you when it comes to the tenets of this book. And therefore we've been discussing under this wasiyat of Amir al-Mu'mineen, and we've been talking about various different discussions pertaining to ulum al-Quran. And at times this discussion will be a little bit dry for some. It depends on your interest in Quran and depends on your interest on exploring the different aspect of this Quran. Inshallah, we'll try to summarize it tonight and hopefully we can conclude it on a note where not only that we explore another dimension of Quran, but at the same time we have paid tribute to Mawla Muttaqiyan, Imam al-Mu'minan, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam. But before I begin, just a quick request, as we know that these are the ayyam in which we are commemorating the shahadat, and we live in a society, or we live and we understand this phenomena that life and death is not under anyone's control, and the events of death that takes place on numerous occasions in front of us, by us attending the janazah, by us attending the kafan and the ghusl and all of those rituals, and then by going to the graveyard and burial and all those things. This is where we see that Ma'asumeen have always kept themselves to be prepared for this last travel of theirs. And that's why a mu'min is someone who's always ready to depart on this journey. You should not be scared, because those who claim to be awliya Allah, when they were said, go ahead and see if you call yourself to be the friends of Allah, the followers or the believers of Allah, then demand or ask for the maut from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But then when they said, you will never be able to ask for maut, why? Because of what you have sent forth already. What am I alluding to, inshallah, in 1 minute time that I'm taking, is that this is an opportunity for us. Take this time. You and I are also not ready unless we have that piece of document in our hands which shows our readiness towards the final abode. You know, when any travel that you go about, you're traveling, let's say, to another country, you need to have two things. You need to buy the ticket and you need to have the passport. Without these two, you will not be able to travel. Similarly, when you want to travel to that inevitable journey that everybody has to take, you need to have the sanad, the place there where you'll be buried, and you need to have your kafan ready as well. So my plea is that this is the month when obviously we are in this spirit of giving and all that stuff. Therefore, make this use of the land which was purchased by Masjid-e-Ali for the purpose of graveyard at Forest Green Cemetery. There are 200 graves were, I believe, purchased over there by the Masjid-e-Ali. This is your chance. You can go ahead and block or go ahead and purchase those graves, because that's a place where everyone has to go and everyone has to take that journey. So it's just a request from all of you. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. We're doing the discussion in regards to last night, Muhkam and Mutashabih. And just a conclusion of that discussion, so there isn't any ambiguity left, because the discussion of Mutashabih is ambiguous itself. So there is a possibility that there might be some ambiguities left as far as that discussion is concerned. We see that why do Quran even has these doubtful verses to begin with? Why would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would leave, doubtful verses which would be ambiguous? So in the very beginning, why aren't all the verses of Quran muhkam? In a sense that they are well established, you read this verse and you understand right away. Why would there be any chance so that someone will fall victim to interpreting these verses one way or the other? So here we understand there's a reason behind it, and the reason is that it leads to the much needed research and exploration of the hidden meanings that are there in as far as this Quran is concerned. If I can just ask all of you to move a little bit forward as well as people are walking in, so they can just settle in the back. Loud salawat, please. Get up and walk. It's right here all empty. So one of the reasons why we have these verses is because it leads to the much needed research. Otherwise, if all the verses are muhkam, there would not be any reason for anyone to go about and do any research. Because there are ambiguities that exist, it leads one to go ahead and ponder and do further research to go ahead and extract other meanings out of it. Secondly, if all of the verses were muhkam, the hearts of mu'mineen would not have been tested. This is where something that is challenging right away, it doesn't make sense, or there's question mark in front of it, right away this is where the challenge comes about, and mu'mineen and their hearts are tested. But the reality of mutashabih, and we'll conclude this discussion for tonight and inshallah until next year, is that our third Imam, Imam Hussein ibn Ali alayhi salatu wasalam, Imam said, Kitabullahi Azza wa Jal ala arba'ati ashya'in. The book of Allah is on four things. What are these four things? He said, ala al-ibarati wal-isharati wal-lataifi wal-haqa'iq. Book of Allah is on four things. What are these four things? One is the clauses, these statements. Second is the allusions, things which are alluded to. Number three, subtleties or intricacies in this Quran. And lastly, the realities and the haqa'iq. And then Imam further explained, he said, فَالْإِبَارَةُ لِلْأَوَامِ. These statements and the clauses are for awamun nas, the general public. وَالْإِشَارَةُ لِلْخَوَاسِ. The kinayat, the signs which are alluding to something else are for those who have deeper understanding, and they're referred to as the khawas. وَاللَّطَائِفُ لِلْأَوْلِيَاءِ. And the intricacies in this Quran are for the awliya Allah. And then lastly he said, وَالْحَقَائِقُ لِلْأَنْبِيَاءِ. And the realities that are hidden in this book are for the Anbiya Allah. So if you want to talk about the mutashabih and the ambiguities, yes, even Imam Hussein is testifying to the fact that Quran, while it is a book for everyone, that everyone would be able to understand it, but do not think that this book would be compared to another book. Yes, the same way this book is revealed for every human being. Anyone anyone can go ahead and benefit from this book, but only those whose hearts are inclined towards it and are ready to accept it will be able to benefit from it the way the haqq of benefiting is. But the book is for everyone. The same way our Prophet is Rahmatan lil Alameen, this book is also for Alameen as well. But not everybody from Alameen would go ahead and be able to benefit the way Mu'mineen and the way Muttaqeen are able to benefit. You remember this verse of Quran, everybody does, Alif Lam Mim, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. That this book is for everyone, but only those who are sahiban and taqwa will be able to benefit properly out of this book. So from here we understand that another reason why this book has mutashabih is the wujud of huruf muqatta'at, the abbreviated letters that exist in Quran. So out of 114 chapters of Quran, 29 of them begin with these abbreviated letters. For example, Alif Lam Mim, Alif Lam Ra, Alif Lam Mim Ra, Ha Mim, Ta Sin, Ta Sin Mim, or Ain Sin Qaf, or Kaf Ha Ya Ain Sad, Noon Qaf. All of these are what? These are abbreviated letters. These are called huruf muqatta'at. None of us know the meaning of what these huruf muqatta'at are, and therefore they are also under the category of mutashabih. If this was a case, someone would say there's nothing mutashabih, then how would you deal with the verses that are beginning with huruf muqatta'at? Definitely you and I do not possess the knowledge of what these huruf muqatta'at are. But out of these huruf muqatta'at, there have been many alphabets that are repeated, but there are only 14 original alphabets that exist as far as huruf muqatta'at are concerned. So if someone was to ask you, what letters or alphabets comprise of huruf muqatta'at? You say, well, there are 29 chapters. It's very difficult for me to tell you what are these alphabets. No, there are 14 alphabets. And if you have difficulty remembering what those 14 are, different scholars such as Mullah Faid Kashani explains in a sentence by which you can remember what these huruf muqatta'at are. He said, Siratu aliyin haqqun numsikuhu. Sirat, you got these 4 alphabets in there. Sad, Ra, Alif, Ta. Ali, Ain, Lam, Ya. Haqqun, Ha, and Qaf. Numsikhu, Noon, Mim, Sin, Kaf, Ha. These are the 14 alphabets that are used in huruf muqatta'at. Easy way for you to remember is this sentence, that the path of Ali is haqq, and we hold on to the path of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam. So here we look at, after this discussion is concluded, that things are not as easy when it comes to this book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at times. And that's why when you look at that riwayah which says, Al-Haqqu ma'ali wa aliyun ma'al-haqq, there's another dimension, or there's another version which says, Al-Qur'anu ma'ali wa aliyun ma'al-Qur'an. That Quran is with Ali and Ali is with Quran. And that's primarily is the reason that we are having this discussion on the nights when Quran was revealed. And while there was Quran, which was Quran as-Samit, which was being revealed from the heavens down to earth, there was Quran Natiq, which was ascending from this earth towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's why the discussion is justified, that as to why we are discussing about Amir al-Mu'mineen alongside with this Quran. So it would have been a lot easier for us to prove to anyone if the name of Ali ibn Abi Talib was mentioned in Quran. But we said that look, there's no reason for people to go ahead and name, or if someone asks you where does it exist in Quran, where does it say this in Quran, you don't have to prove everything through Quran like this. Because if you get into the business of proving things which exist in Quran and don't exist in Quran, then you run into a lot of trouble. Here is a similar scenario where if someone was to ask, not every single thing in details is mentioned in Quran. Quran is a book of 600 pages, more or less, and then 6,000 plus verses of Quran, more or less. We see that this book comes down giving us the gist of things and not going into the tafasil. And that's why, we look at the riwayat and we bank a lot on the riwayat to go ahead and explain. Although Quran says, مَا فَرَّطْنَا فِيهِ مِنْ شَيْءٍ وَلَا رَطْبٍ وَلَا يَابِسٍ إِلَّا فِي كِتَابٍ مُبِينٍ. There is not a wet or dry that is not in Quran. But you and I are unable to extract that wet and dry, which everything God is claiming that is in this book. But you and I are unable to encrypt what is in this Quran. Therefore, we see and we run into this problem that we can't prove everything through this Quran. And that's why amongst these things, as far as our wajibat, obligations, and muharramat are concerned, we take our fiqhi masail not just from Quran. The second source is the hadith of our Prophet. Third source is the consensus of ulama. And fourth source is your aql, that you utilize your aql. There were many things that were not existing in the time of Rasulullah. So you go ahead and use your aql today to go ahead and prove whether that thing is allowed today or not. Obviously keeping those principles in mind. But you cannot say that every single thing would be existing in Quran, otherwise it would have been a lot easier. I said that is the reason, primary reason why God left a lot of mutashabih, so that the hearts of mu'mineen are tested with it as well. People are tested with it as well. And the reason is so that further exploration of Quran is done and research of Quran is done. But as far as the name of Ali, he said if the name of Ali was in Quran, it would have been a lot easier for us to go ahead and prove the point that who's the Khalifa after Rasulullah. Even then, if the name of Ali had appeared in Quran directly, although there are over 1,000 verses in Quran which are referring towards Amirul Mu'mineen and his sifat and Amirul Mu'mineen's actions and whatnot, but directly you don't find the name. So even if the name was there directly, those amongst the hypocrites, they would still be able to deny the haqq that Ali ibn Abi Talib had. But nonetheless, here to reveal unto you, if you did not know, some Mufassirin believe that the name of Ali ibn Abi Talib has appeared in Quran. The address is chapter 19, Surah Maryam, verse number 50. Verse number 50 of chapter 19 says, وَوَهَبْنَا لَهُم مِّن رَحْمَتِنَا وَجَعَلْنَا لَهُم لِسَانَ صِدْقٍ عَلِيًّا. And we gave them out of our mercy and we appointed them a tongue, that is the tongue of Ali. You say, well, how come I've never heard of this? That the name of Ali exists in Quran. So there must be some catch to it. No, there isn't really. It's the discussion of linguistics. Either a thing is an adjective or it's an apposition. Or in Arabic we call it sifat or badal. Sifat usually is in compliance with that mawsuf, for that which it is being brought. So, the wall is big. That's the sifat and the attribute of the wall. For example, the boy is clever or intelligent. You bring the sifat for that. So there are sifat, there are attributes which are according to the mawsuf, that person or that thing. Here, if you want to take the word Ali, which literally means, because it's the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well, in the meaning of high, that's the meaning of the word Ali. Then the translation would be, and we granted them a tongue which is high. You say, where does anyone use in any language? There are different people of those who speak different languages over here. I can point out Persian, Arabic, Swahili, Urdu, Punjabi, English, and some other languages. Go ahead and think through in your head, does anyone use the word high for the tongue as an attribute? Does anyone say that that person has a very high tongue? No. That person has a very, high in a sense, because the word Ali refers towards heights. The word Ali refers towards heights. So over here, linguistically speaking, the word Ali would not be fitting for lisan, which means tongue, as an attribute or as an adjective for it. The only way you can provide a solution that this word is there, for the reason that it is a badal, a position to the word lisan, and then you will have to translate this ayah that we gave them a tongue, which is the tongue of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam. So what and to further prove this point, Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam makes a dua. In Quran on 2 occasions, he makes 2 du'as. First dua that he made, he said, رَبَّنَا وَبْعَثْ فِيهِمْ رَسُولًا مِّنْهُمْ يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِكَ وَيُعَلِّمُهُمْ so on and so forth. Oh Allah, when he was building the Kaaba, oh Allah, raise among these people, a Rasul who would recite your ayat, and he would do this and he would do that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted his wish. He said what? And he said, هُوَ الَّذِي بَعَثَ فِي الْأُمِّيِّينَ رَسُولًا. Surah Jum'ah, right? You recite this ayat every Friday at least. هُوَ الَّذِي بَعَثَ فِي الْأُمِّيِّينَ رَسُولًا مِّنْهُمْ يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ. Exact same question that he had asked. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replies by granting, O Ibrahim, we have heard your dua and we are granting and we are raising a prophet amongst them who will do what? Who will recite the Quran, who will do the tazkiyah, who will provide the ilm and who will provide the hikmah. So that was the first dua made by Hazrat Ibrahim والسلام, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants. The second dua that Hazrat Ibrahim makes, he said, وَجَعَلْ لِي لِسَانَ صِدْقٍ فِي الْآخَرِينَ. In Surah Shu'ara, verse number 84, he says, Oh Allah, also make a lisan, a tongue which is a righteous tongue. I want to translate the word over here, righteous. Oh Allah, place in the akhareen, when you have raised this Nabi, in that nation also place a tongue which is Ali, which is righteous tongue. Do you think when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts one dua with Ibrahim, He will decline on the second dua with Ibrahim? He did not. So therefore He said this. He said, وَوَهَبْنَا لَهُ إِسْحَاقَ وَيَعْقُوبَ. We have granted you Ishaq and Yaqub. وَكُلًّا جَعَلْنَا نَبِيًّا. And we made them all to be Nabi. وَوَهَبْنَا لَهُم مِّن رَحْمَتِنَا. And to them we granted out of our mercy. وَجَعَلْنَا لَهُمْ لِسَانَ صِدْقٍ عَلِيًّا. And for them we placed a tongue which is the tongue of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam. Thirdly, the third proof in this regard is the riwayat. How are you going to get away with the riwayat? These were the two proofs from Quran itself. Linguistically speaking, second, the du'as made by Hazrat Ibrahim. First dua was granted and the second dua was granted in this way. And then third is the riwayat in this regard. So we see there are a couple of riwayat. I'm not going to take too much of your time in this because tonight we have amal as well. There's tabut will be taken out. Inshallah we'll have matam as well. So the time, and tomorrow is a working day for many of you. So therefore inshallah we'll try and conclude it as quickly as possible. First hadith is from our 8th Imam, Imam Ali ibn Musa Rada alayhi salatu wassalam. That a person by the name Yunus ibn Abdul Rahman said to him, إِنَّ قَوْمًا طَالِبُونِي بِإِسْمِ أَمِيرِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ فِي كِتَابِ اللَّهِ. That my people asked me in regards to, in reference to the name of Ali ibn Abi Talib in Kitab Allah Azza wa Jalla. فَقُلْتُ لَهُمْ مِنْ قَوْلِهِ تَعَالَى. And then I tell them from the verses of Quran, وَجَعَلْنَا لَهُمْ لِسَانَ صِدْقٍ عَلِيًّا. I recite this ayat whenever they ask me, show me the name of Ali ibn Abi Talib in Quran. Imam Rada replied by saying, Saddaqta huwa hakadha. You're truthful in this regard. That's what it means in that particular ayah. Second hadith is from Abi Basir, who's again one of the 6 most important rawat who narrated from our 6th Imam. He said, وَجَعَلْنَا لَهُمْ لِسَانَ صِدْقٍ عَلِيًّا. What does that mean? Our 6th Imam replied by saying, يَعْنِي عَلِي ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam. So in these two riwayat, we see that very clearly when Ma'asumin were asked about the name of Amir al-Mu'mineen, how explicitly they went ahead and mentioned that this ayat of Surah Maryam, chapter 19, verse number 50, is referring towards the name of Ali ibn Abi Talib. But let's go ahead and say, going back to our initial discussion as to the names where Ali's Sifat are mentioned in thousands of other ayat in Quran. We don't really need to look for the name of Ali ibn Abi Talib to prove anything for that matter, because Quran's method of using names is different than any other book. Why? Quran talks about many individuals, yet it does not mention or reveal their names at all. For example, Quran talks about very important personalities such as Hazrat Hawa is mentioned in Quran without her name being mentioned. Hazrat Hajar is mentioned, Sarah is mentioned, Asiya, the wife of Fir'aun, is mentioned, the wives of Nuh and Lut are given some reference, even Zulaykha and Bilqis are mentioned, but none of them were given, or their names were not mentioned in the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So here we can understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might talk about certain individuals, yet would not disclose their name at all. And we see that Prophet Samuel of Bani Israel, Asif ibn Barkhiyah, Abu Bakr, Umar, Walid ibn Uqba, father of Amr ibn As, all of these people have been referenced in Quran, yet none of their names exist in Quran. And these are the verses which are clear cut and everyone understand there is no ambiguity. In other words, they're not mutashabih so that people will fall prey and victim to it. We see all Mufassirin, Muhaddiseen agree upon the fact, Shia and Sunni, the verse which says, وَمَنْ عِنْدَهُ عِلْمٌ مِنَ الْكِتَابِ, when that when Hazrat Sulaiman had asked, who amongst you will be able to bring the Takht of Bilqis? A person rises up and says, I'll bring it back, in the blink of an eye. And that was none other than Asif ibn Barkhiyah. Nobody doubts that it was him who was able to perform. Why? Because he possessed part of the ilmun min al-kitab. He had a little bit of the knowledge of the book, and that's why he was able to perform that miracle. Similarly, in Surah Hujurat, when we read, In ja'akum fasiqun binaba'in fatabayyanu, whenever a fasiq comes to you, make sure you do not take the word right away. Ponder over the word. Look twice before you go ahead and accept what this person is saying. So this ayat is very clear from Surah Hujurat, which was revealed for Walid ibn Uqba. Moreover, according to Sahih Bukhari, the ayat of Quran of the same Surah Hujurat, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la tarfa'u asfatakum fawqa sawti an-nabi. All those who believe, do not raise your voices over the voice of Rasulullah, was revealed in regards to Abu Bakr and Umar when they were quarreling with one another in the masjid of Rasulullah. In front of Rasulullah, this ayat was revealed, and they all agree, Sahih Bukhari is mentioning this, that it was referred to first and the second Khalifa. And all of us agree when that ayat was revealed, إِنَّمَا وَلِيُّكُمُ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا الَّذِينَ يُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ وَيُؤْتُونَ الزَّكَاةَ وَهُمْ رَاكِعُونَ. That these are the people who give zakat while they are performing the ruku, was revealed for none other than Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam. So from here we can understand the sensitivity of why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not mention some names. Although a lot of other wives of Rasulullah were also referenced in Quran, but there's a reason behind not giving the name and disclosing the name of Ma'sumin. In particular Ali ibn Abi Talib. Why? So that Quran would remain from any type of fabrication and tahrif. There's a big problem of tahrif in the previous scriptures revealed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He wants to keep this book from any sort of fabrication, alteration. He also says, Inna nahnu nazzalna dhikra wa inna lahu lahafidhun. Indeed, we are the ones who have revealed this dhikr, and we will protect it. But what does it mean that when Allah says we will protect it? That if you and I tonight wanted to go ahead and remove a verse from Quran, will there be some sort of electric shock as soon as we try to remove this verse? Will be struck by a lightning or something if we try to remove this verse? No. When Allah says we are the ones who reveal this book and we will protect it, that means He has done and provided the means in this book to keep it from being tampered with. Nobody's going to come and touch the ayat of Quran which is saying, Qul huwa Allahu ahad. Nobody's going to come and touch the ayat which says, Inna a'tainaka al-kawthar. Nobody's going to come and touch the ayat which are talking about the jihad, in fact they're going to quote more as much as possible because it's today's usage. But the places where there will be tampering possible is where the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen is mentioned. People say, why do we talk about the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen? Where does it mention? There's a tafsir called Tafsir al-Tha'alabi. The author in this tafsir talks about the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen. He said when the Prophet ascended towards the Mi'raj, and he was at the fourth heaven, Allah had asked all the Anbiya to gather in the reception of Rasulullah. When they all gathered in the reception of Rasulullah, and they were there, the question was asked, do you know why you were raised as the prophets? They all replied by saying that because of your wahdaniyat, O Allah, because of the nubuwwat of Rasulullah, and for the wilayat of Ali ibn Abi Talib. So today if someone says, why do you add something to the kalima? Kalima is La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. Where did this Ali ibn Waliullah come from? I said, no, we did not add anything to the kalima. You actually subtracted something from the kalima. Because kalima was always La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, Ali ibn Waliullah from the time of Anbiya, because they are the ones who are testifying that the reason we were mab'uth bi risalah, because we believed in the wahdaniyat of Allah, we believed in the nubuwwat of Rasulullah, and we believed in the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam. wassalam. Salawat bi Muhammad. So from here we understand that there are certain verses in Quran which might be prone to temperament. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He says, Inna nahnu nazzalna dhikra wa inna lahu lahafizun, He's done some mechanism in order to go ahead and protect those verses. And obviously the verses which will be under attack are the verses where the wilayat of Ma'sumin is mentioned, in particular to the wilayat of Ali ibn Abi Talib. And therefore, very quickly, I'll just give reference and won't go into details as to what the mechanism that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala adopted. He adopted a mechanism where when you start reading this ayat and when you finish reading this ayat, you will see that there is this continuity in this ayat, yet in the middle there's this jumla mu'tariza. There's this, a sentence which is does not belong to this ayat, yet it is there in between these two parts of the ayat. Right away, when you cannot remove the first part, you cannot remove the second part, you will keep the part which is in between as well, because that's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had placed. For example, if you look at this ayat, which it was ayat of Ghadir, which we refer to, in which when the ayat was mentioned, Al-Yawm akmaltu lakum dinakum wa atmamtu alaykum ni'mati wa raditu lakum al-Islam dina, or Al-Yawm ya'is alladhina kafaru min dinikum fala takhshawhum wakhshawni. Today is the day, kuffar are mayus, do not be afraid of them, rather be afraid of me. So there's some sort of danger that lies, because this is in regards to the wilayat of Amirul Mu'mineen. They all agree when this ayat was revealed at the event of Ghadir Khum. So how does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begin this ayat? He begins this ayat of Surah Ma'idah, verse number 3. حُرِّمَتْ عَلَيْكُمُ الْمَيْتَةُ وَالدَّمُ وَلَحْمُ الْخِنْزِيرِ. Haram upon you are these things, the maita, the carcass. Haram upon you is the blood. Haram upon you is pork. Haram upon you is that upon which the name of someone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is recited. So you say, hold this ayat is going towards mentioning the ahkam of haram and halal. You continue on reading this ayat, and then you find yourself stumble onto the part which says, Al-Yawm akmaltu lakum dinakum wa atmamtu alaykum ni'mati wa raditu lakum al-Islam dina. Okay, well, it changed the subject a little bit. Maybe it still belongs to the first part of the ayat, but then you go back to, when you continue on reading this ayat, you stumble upon the last part of the ayat, which says, فَمَنِ اسْتُرَّ فِي مَخْمَسَةٍ غَيْرَ مُتَجَانِفٍ لَا He said, yes, these things are haram unto you. This thing you cannot eat except when you are majboor. So you say, well, the first part does correspond to the last part. Therefore, there's something wrong with this ayat. No, nothing is wrong. This is the mechanism that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has adopted in order for this ayat to remain unchanged so that nobody can tamper with it. Why? Because the wilayat of Amirul Mu'mineen is mentioned in the middle of this ayat. Second ayat is that ayat of Surah Ahzab, verse number 33. It does not begin by innama yuridullah. Rather, it starts out by talking about the azwaj and the wives of Rasulullah, and then this little part comes in between, and then Allah goes back talking about the wives of Rasulullah. So people, that's why some of our brothers go ahead and include the wives into the Ahlul Bayt. That's the reason they go ahead and say, because it's in between of the two parts. But the reason behind it was that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted this ayat to remain intact without any temperament, and that is the reason why it was placed in this way. And there's another ayat in Surah Ma'idah, verse number 67, which is also placed in between two verses which has nothing to do with it. You look at 66 and 68, you say it's talking about Ahlul Kitab, it's talking about their book, it's talking about their practices. If they stay true to their book and to their religion, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive them. The 68 is talking about the same thing, yet in between these two ayat, you have this ayah which says, بَلِّغْ مَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ مِنْ رَبِّكَ. O Prophet, go ahead and announce which has been revealed unto you. If you do not announce, as if you have not conveyed the risalah at all. So here we understand how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to protect the wilayat of Amirul Mu'mineen. If Allah is trying to protect something, then there is no way that anyone can tamper with it. Sallu ala Muhammad wa So in conclusion, Quran explicitly mentions that Bani Israel from the very beginning knew as far as the miracles and the knowledge of Hazrat Musa ﷺ, and then that he's the messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but still didn't believe. So ilm itself is not enough to bring Iman. Knowledge itself will not bring Iman. These people, Bani Israel, knew from the very beginning about Hazrat Musa ﷺ and his power and his ilm and so on and so forth, that he was chosen as the messenger, yet they still denied him. So, name of Ali has appeared in Quran, chapter 19, verse number 50, the way I had explained. Quran wanted to decrease the tendency of tahrif, that's why it did not repeat this phenomena, did not mention the name of Ali ibn Abi Talib or any other imams. After that, Quran wants us to believe in the important phenomena of imamat and vilayat by going through these mutashabih verses, doing research and then exploring them and then bringing it out, so that when you have done some hard work, then when you have received something, you firmly believe in it. But if something is given to you for, very easily, you take it for granted. So that's another reason why the vilayat of Masumin is mentioned in this way. And therefore we understand that even if the name of Ali and the Masumin was mentioned over and over and over again in Quran, as it is indirectly into those thousands of verses, people of hypocrisy and hypocrites would have still denied the fact that the name of Ali existed. But we're talking about an individual, a person who has the pain for the society. He feels the pain for society. You and I should also have this pain, this dard. You say pain is not a good thing. Is pain a good thing? When I'm paining, it's not a good thing. It's a bad thing. I don't want to be in pain. But no, when you have the pain, it's actually a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because if you don't have the pain after you have broken something, you will not go after curing that thing. If you don't feel the pain of some internal injury that you have suffered, you will not go after, fixing it or getting it, checked out by the physicians and whatnot. That's why, and correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of these cancer cases, they come without any pain. So when the time it reveals and it comes about with the other signs, it sometimes is very difficult to counter that. So that's why it comes without pain. So pain becomes what? Pain becomes a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They say, yes, we want to have this pain so that we can feel where we're hurting, so that we can go ahead and address that issue. What kind of pain are we talking about? We're talking about the pain for the society. Not this, physical pain that we have. The internal pain that Amir al-Mu'mineen had. This person who's the hero and the champion of all of these battles that have taken place, yet when he sees a yatim on the street crying, his heart melts. When he sees a widow on the street carrying the food to bring it for the family, Imam bursts into cries or bursts into tears. What is the incident? First, once he sees this lady who is carrying the water back home, Imam goes up and helps this lady out. And then when Imam helps her out, he's asking her questions in between. Isn't there any man in your house who would do all of these chores for you? Why would you have to go out? She said one thing that broke the heart of Amir al-Mu'mineen. She said, my husband died while fighting alongside with Ali. Amir al-Mu'mineen is weeping inside. He carries the water skin back home. He sees the little children in the house. He said, I'll bring some food for you tomorrow. What time do you wake up? Imam goes, this lady is thinking this man is helping us out. God has sent some sort of Messiah. Imam goes, he could not sleep all night. Next morning, he cannot wait for the morning. He grabs all the food that he can, brings it home, knocks on the door. He said, you want me to take care of the kids while you cook the food? Or do you want me to cook the food while you take care of the kids? She said, no, I'll cook the food, you go ahead and take care of the children. Imam says, fine. He gives the food to the lady, she's preparing the food, while Imam goes and sits with these young children. And when Imam sits with these yatim and yutama, Imam is putting his hand onto their head and saying, forgive Ali ibn Abi Talib. Forgive Ali ibn Abi Talib. That I was oblivious of what had gone through with you. That you do not have a fatherly figure and there's no one to take care of you. Imam ﷺ is feeding these children with his own hands, and Imam is asking for forgiveness one after another person. He gives one more son and he asks for the forgiveness. Sort of reminds me of after Hassanan were done burying their father. When they were coming back, they heard a person in the Kharaba of Kufa and Sham sitting and weeping. Imam Hassan stops over there and Imam Hassan speaks to this person. And he said, "What has happened to you?" He said, "Well, I used to be fed every night. Someone would bring food for me. That person hasn't come in 3 days." He said, "Do you recognize that person? Do you know who he was? Maybe we can call him and maybe we can tell him that you're still hungry." He said, "I don't know. I've never been able to see him. He would come in the dark of night and he would leave the food and he would leave." He said, "But there is one resemblance that I see in your voice to that person. He did sound like you." He said that to Imam Hassan. Imam Hassan understands that this person is talking about none other than Ali ibn Abi Talib. He said, "No longer will that person come for you and to deliver food to you because we just finished burying him. This person is no longer alive. 3 days ago he was struck on his head while he was performing Salatul Fajr or the Nafilah of Salatul Fajr. While he was struck, he survived for 3 days. Imam Ali, after having been struck, we see the night that began for this calamity. Imam, when the month of Ramadan had begun, in fact, when Imam had heard Rasulullah, this ayat, أَيَحْسَبَ النَّاسِ أَن يُتْرَكُوا أَن يَقُولُوا آمَنَّا وَهُمْ لَا يُفْتَنُونَ, that people think that they have said, we have brought Iman and they will not be tested. Imam said, "Is there a musibat coming upon us?" Prophet said, "Yes, there will be a musibat upon you, that you will be struck on the head and your mahasin, your beard will be colored with the blood of your head." Imam said, "I'm ready for that shahada. I will be thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala." And as soon as the month of Ramadan started, Imam's kayfiyat was different. He would ask his children, "What is today's date?" When it was 13th of Ramadan, he asked Imam Hassan, "How many more days until Ramadan?" Imam said, "It's 13th of Ramadan." Amir al-Mu'mineen said, "Yes, that night is about to come." He already knew and he had predicted the night. Imam alayhi salatu wassalam was eventually struck. You heard about the initial masaib. We see that when the body of Imam in that form was being brought back home, they were carrying Imam's body. Imam said to Hassanan, "Oh beta, stop over here, let me walk." He said, "Baba, how are you going to walk in this condition?" He said, "When I left the home of Kulthum, I was walking on my feet. I do not want to go back into the house while I'm being carried in there. Let me stand and let me walk." Imam walks to the house, walks inside. You see, and we heard the Masaib, how the daughters reacted to that. But Imam's pain is increasing every single day. And then eventually the night comes when Imam will succumb to the injuries. But this is the time when people are coming one after another and want to speak to Imam. He said, "Saluni, ask me whatever you want to, but don't ask too much. I do not have the power. I do not have the ability to answer to speak to you for a long time. Ali is feeling ill. Ali is feeling sick. Ali is fragile at this moment." Asma ibn Nabata, one of the companions, comes and he sees that the Imam's head was covered. He sees, and he says, "I could not recognize, was Imam's face more pale or this injury was pale?" He said he wanted to sit with Imam, but Hassan and Mustafa said Imam would not be able to sit. These were the companions. Imam then gathered all of his family. He brought everyone near. He said, "Bring everyone." And then he started giving wasiyah. He said that after me, Hassan will be your Imam. Make sure you do his ita'at. Make sure that you listen to his ahkam. Make sure what he says, you pay attention. When he had given this instruction, there was one boy who was standing there. He said, "Imam Hassan, everyone's hand was given into the hand, but my hand was not." This was Qamar ibn Hashim, Hazrat Abul Fadl Abbas. He goes to his mother Umm al-Baneen. He goes to Umm al-Baneen and he said, Mawla did not put my hand in the hand of Hassan Mujtaba. Baneen comes out, Mawla, you are in pain, but what has my son done that you did not put his hand in the hands of Hassan Mujtaba? Imam brought Hussein close by. He asked Abbas to come, and then he said to Abbas, oh Abbas, remember this, you are my son, and Hussein is son of Rasulullah. As long as you are alive, don't let anything happen to us, Hussein. Ajrukum Allah. Last few sentences. Imam eventually departs this world. Imam is no longer alive. According to the Wasiyah, his janazah was taken at night. Imam had already prepared for everything. In fact, his qabr was made by Hazrat Nuh. Nobody knew where to bury Ali ibn Abi Talib, but he had said, all you have to do is lift my janazah from the back of Hasanain, and then there would be two angels taking my janazah to my last resting abode. I would say, Mawla, it was very difficult, but at least your children were there. They were able to carry your janazah to the grave. But then come the time of your son, Hussein ibn Ali. His lasha was slain onto the plains of Karbala.